So we should get started, given that it's 4:15 and there was no coffee. So yep, I hope everybody's awake, and thank you for being here at the very last one between us and the fun begins. I am Smita Siddhanti, and you are here for Investing for Social Impact, and it's an honor and my passion to be here, and that I'm with this very coveted panel, and the fact that, and I wanted to say that in the beginning, that all the longevity studies and the happiness studies in the world have shown that the way people are happy and are living longer are, A, they are involved with with the larger society in some form or another, and secondly, that they're actually doing some social good, and they're doing something good for somebody, even if somebody who's weaker than them. And so fortunate as I feel myself that I am working in this sphere for a long time. So my quick introduction, I'm Smita Siddhanti, as I said, and I run an environmental consulting firm here in Washington, D.C., and my discipline is in that area. But I'm very involved with that, not only the social change in terms of environmental management, and I give a lot of my credit to my dear husband, Ashok Siddhanti, who was the Pan IIT guy and the Capital IIT president. Ashok started the Wheels Global Foundation, along with Suresh Shenoy sitting there, and many others, Hitendra, in Pan IIT. So the Pan IIT's social arm of social impact investing in terms of social change through technology, we call it rural transformation through technology globally, is Wheels Global Foundation, and it's the Pan IIT's philanthropic arm. So Wheels stands for water, energy, environment, education, livelihood, and sustainability. I am on the board of that, and I am health. Sorry. Did I miss that? Yeah. Dr. Shah is leading that, and he's sitting right here. So I couldn't have said that. And we're doing phenomenal work, so we'll talk about that. The little talk is that because this is a Pan IIT forum, we really want you to know about that. Social impact is a very big piece of that. That is the piece, that is the mission. And we are doing a lot of work in rural transformation, including the digital health or telehealth across 250 to 300 villages in various parts of the country, including water management, including livelihoods for entrepreneurship, for rural entrepreneurship, which I'm very engaged in and passionate about. And and for education, we're doing a lot of work. We're doing a lot of work with various parts of energy, as well as I said, sustainability. So please join us in this, and this is a forum to inspire you with people who have given their lives and are truly spanning the sector here, of various sectors. And nobody needs introduction of Deepak Raj, and I thought that Pranay was going to introduce people, but let people introduce themselves. Deepak Raj is not only in the sector of Pratham, founder of Pratham, which is the education forum that everybody knows about for underprivileged children in India, and also in the Impact group, which does the positive political impact to social good. And Shobhit is running Rishi University. Yep. He'll tell more about it. It is the one-of-a-kind university that is doing leadership for social impact leaders. Let me just leave it at that, near Delhi. And it's the first of its kind. So we need leaders. We need people who can actually take that kind of leadership. Nalini will tell more about herself from Arogya world and working in global health. And
Jared Lang with housing sustainability
is doing energy and energy sustainability work, and he'll talk a little more about it. So my quick work in the larger impact is we are doing across U.S. all the disadvantaged communities, and I'm very fortunate to have gotten this big contract with EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, to do 1,000 communities across the country to do their social equity through climate adaptation and change in all kinds of ways that their work for job creation in their communities along with that. So the IRA fund is a very big way going in that direction for environmental justice. So that's basically where my focus is for next year or two, along with being with the wheels on their global platform. And I am also with TIE, the Indus Entrepreneurs Global Board. I actually run their the social impact global special interest group. So there's a lot of interest in innovative companies that are doing, and there's a lot of companies that are doing that. So with that, I'm going to stop about myself. Please talk about you have your...
Yeah, I have this.
Yeah, so Deepak, please.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you for coming. There's a bunch of other interesting panels going on, so I appreciate your attention. And it's great to be here with the esteemed panelists here. So I look forward to a great discussion. So let me just give you a couple of big picture kind of things that we do. You want to get that? No. Are you okay? I'm a public servant, so So the two or three big picture things. One is that we have a foundation, and we try to find specific ideas and specific things to do in terms of our philanthropic effort. Essentially, about half of our activities are in India, and the other half is in the US. And we have a different approach between India and the US. In India, we basically look for systemic change. So we have an option in India of doing something very specific, which is extremely terrific thing to do, right? You take a girl who comes from an underprivileged background, and you see her through college, and it's a very satisfying experience. But the problem is so vast in India that I have found it to be more satisfying, quite frankly, to think about big solutions and what we can do that way. So a couple of examples there, if I can, at least one example, and then I give you one in the US that we do. Pratham is very near and dear to my heart. Pratham, so basically, what is a problem Pratham is trying to solve? In India, there is 40–50% of the students in 5th grade cannot read or write at the 1st grade level. And since you have this issue of no child left behind, they can get to 10th grade and not be able to read or write. And so it is a huge problem because then they're lost and they drop out of the system and it creates a big issue. So Pratham does a very focused, high-intensity, short course in how to bring literacy and numeracy levels up for these kids in a very significant, measurable, cost-effective kind of a way. And over the years, the numbers are quite staggering. Again, scale is important. About 50 million kids have benefited from Pratham's efforts. They have built up terrific IP on how to do this effectively. And now we have operations in Africa, about 13 countries in Africa who are very interested in doing this. We've been there for about 4 or 5 years. And again, it's been a very satisfying journey. Terrific leadership, by the way. And it's it's a grown-up organization, right? So it's been great. So again, systemic change, how to improve education at a very broad level, and work very closely, by the way, with the government. So the state governments are a very important key to the success of Pratham, because these education, healthcare, NGOs cannot solve these matters, right? So you have to have huge leveraging effect from the government, of the government, to be able to be effective. One other one I would mention briefly, and then if there's interest, we can talk about it a lot more. It is a relatively decent effort of ours, is something called Nudge, which is the big mission of Nudge is to end ultra poverty. India, I love India. I go to India 4 times a year. The aspirations, the growth, it is absolutely fantastic. But you still have 20% of the Indian population that is ultra poor. And ultra poor is $2 a day. Right? so what can be done to improve the lot of the ultra poor and to bring this population, and 20% of 1.5 billion is 300 million, right? That is almost the size of the US. So it's a huge population, and what can we do there? So I won't bore you much with more details, but we can talk about it later if you have an interest. In the US, again, a gap that we found, and this goes back about 6 or 7 years, that why don't we have better representation from our community in the government? Why don't we have better representation from our community in the government? I'm out of time, or is it okay? Just give me 1 minute. And so, let me give you 2 or 3 examples. Back in 2015-16, when we launched Impact, there was one congressman of Indian American origin, right? And it was not Raja. Raja came in 2016. So one Indian American congressman. Our population is slightly smaller than the Jewish population, but not that much, right? We're pretty close. 45, right? 1 for us, 45 for the Jewish population. Why is this gap? 2 or 3 very concrete examples close to, we live in New Jersey. My wife is here. Edison, New Jersey, for those of you from New Jersey, half the population of Edison is Indian American, and we have a Chinese mayor there, at least at that time, right? Queens, where we all kind of like grew up in the US, right? Queens was a favorite spot for us to go. And again, regular American kind of representation. So we had a severe lack of representation. In the entire state houses in the US, there were 7 or 8 Indian American House, Senate, or House members. So that's what we tried to change. We've been quite successful in doing that. Sam Joshi is the mayor of Edison. Jennifer Rajkumar is the representative who oversees Queens. The number of people in the House, Indian Americans, is up to 5. We are hopeful there'll be a couple more this year. And the number of people in the House, Senates, and at the state level is 50 from 8. So a lot of wood to chop, but yeah. I'm sorry I took a little bit extra time.
No, awesome work. I mean, no question, there's not enough time to listen to you, but Impact is a very powerful organization he just talked about. So Shobhit, please.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being a part of this discussion here. I'm Shobhit Mathur. I did my computer science education from IIT Bombay. Then I came to the US. I did my master's at UW Seattle in computer science and started to work for Amazon there. And that's when I kind of started thinking about, because that is supposed to be the big American dream, right? You come to the US and you work for a Fortune 500 company and the life is set. But I think that's when I started thinking that, is this what is life all about? That this is what my education and what my parents thought I should be doing in life. So I spent about 5 years in the US, decided to go back to India and contribute in some form to doing something in India. I mean, a lot of people find ways to balance their professional life with their passions, but I always felt that somehow our passion and profession should align. So because of being disconnected from India, I didn't have a very clear idea of what I should be doing, but I traveled across the country, met many different people, and finally, like many people, figured it out that it is education that is perhaps the most important lever to change India. And particularly, my interest has always been in higher education, because once you study in institutions like the IIT and then at UW, and I have seen many other institutions that have kind of built this country. And when we look back and we have this whole India rising story or the potential of India, what we realize is we have barely any institutions in India that we can say are of the global quality and are producing the talent that will make the India story successful. Because whatever we say about India, unless you have the right talent to go and make it happen, it's not going to happen. So I wanted to build a university in India, but of course, building a private university in India is not easy. So I spent quite some time in the social sector, in the public sector, built a lot of support for what I would be doing next. And that's how Rishihood University took birth about 4 years back in a place near Delhi called Sonipat. And the focus of Rishihood University and what we proudly call is, it is India's first and only impact university. And as Smita was mentioning, it is about creating those leaders who will go ahead and create social impact and public impact. So we say impact at 3 levels. So it's not a social work university or a public policy university alone. Whatever disciplines we teach at Rishihood, we are very, very keen that the learners there are given an orientation to go and solve national problems and global problems that are happening out there. So how do we, again, just like my journey has been, how do we produce more Shobhit Mathurs who come out of institutions like Rishihood and go ahead and address many more issues? So this is what we are doing. We are about 3 years old. We have programs in computer science. We have a program in entrepreneurship. We have a program in design, a program in psychology, primarily an undergrad institution, but we're growing slowly. And I think just like many speakers here in this forum have said, that if there is one way we can give back to the country in the best possible way, is we have all benefited from education like IITs. How do we go and build more IITs in India? When I say IITs, I mean the kind of quality that we need. And if one forum could create such a big impact, imagine if you had many more like that in India. So that is what we're trying to do. And it's a huge challenge to build something like this, and that's what we're attempting to do.
Great attempt. Thank you. Thank you, Nalini.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been an exciting day. I'm so happy I've been invited. Thank you very much. I founded an organization called Arogya World. We do diabetes prevention through healthy living in India. We are both headquartered in the US and in India. And at the core of our work is diabetes prevention through healthy living, which has been proven through landmark clinical trials and diabetes prevention program and so on. So we know, for example, that 80% of type 2 diabetes and 80% of heart disease can be prevented with 3 lifestyle changes. You must eat right, exercise, and avoid tobacco. So that is what we take to the people. We work in a very, what we like to call a doorstep health model, taking prevention to people right where they live and learn and work. So we have schools programs, adolescent health programs, teaching 11-year-olds the basics of healthy living and why they should do it. And we're getting impact. Stanford Center for Asian Health Research and Education has just published or has prepared a manuscript, not quite published yet, that shows the impact over 10 years of Arogya's work in adolescent health children. We have also got a healthy workplace program. We have a text message program. And together, and our latest is Arogya City, which is a way for us to get Bangalore to become a healthy city. It's our first effort to make a city healthy. And we have got collective impact from 22 pledge makers, small companies, big companies, startups, colleges. Everybody has joined hands. And we're trying to get at the collective impact by the end of this year. So a couple of points. We have reached 12.5 million people across India, in rural and urban India, over the last 13 years. We're 13 years old. And we have, for this, achieved a United Nations and WHO award for strengthening primary healthcare outside the healthcare system. So thank you very much. It's a very big deal for us, because the only other recipient that year was the government of India and ICMR, the Indian Council of Medical Research, that got the award for their India Hypertension Initiative. So one way you all can contribute as IITians is, I think, if you make physical activity a requirement for entry or a big reason for entry into the IITs, I think you will go a long way. Every mother in India is going to make sure her sons, at least, if not her daughters, I hope the daughters too, will do this physical activity just to get those marks. I think we need systemic change efforts like that. You can join us. Arogya World would welcome any collaboration with you. It's not just in philosophy.
Nalini, awesome. Great effort. Jared, please.
Sure. So, my name is Jared Lang. I'm the principal of a company called Housing Sustainability Advisors. It's about a year old. For many years, about 15 years, I worked in nonprofits in the United States. I'm actually Jewish, and my family immigrated to Queens in the 1930s.
There you go.
So I understand the struggle. I understand the story. And I understand what it's like to try to figure out how to get elected representatives in office.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
So, I guess I thought Pranay invited me to be part of this, and I was thinking a lot about investing for social impact, and I guess, I was thinking, and I guess people, could invest in things that aren't good for people. People like to buy things that aren't good for themselves sometimes. But it's just like in my DNA not to, to focus on those things that like make people's lives better and invest in those places. And I sort of feel like, there's a way to do business where, you could do business, you could make money yourself. People don't necessarily feel happy when they walk away from the transaction, or they feel like, it was a fair deal. And I feel like there's a way to do business where you can really help people. People feel like you were fair and you did the right thing. It helped their lives, and they want to do business with you again. And I think it's a little bit self-serving, and it also makes you feel good. So I work in real estate and solar, and actually Pranay and I we have a new venture. One of the things that we do two main things at Housing Sustainability Advisors. One is we teach people how to develop solar, to finance, design, and install solar that's focused specifically to help low-income people. So to give discounts on power, or to give free credits for electricity to low-income people to help them reduce their expenses and get a leg up in the world. And then the other thing that we do is we teach developers of housing how to invest in a way to reduce their environmental footprint. We focus on, some of the things that we do actually are related to the residents, but oftentimes we're in a position where we come into an organization and help them develop a strategy for how to reduce their footprint, reduce energy and water consumption.
Thanks. That's a great business idea that a lot of people can think about positively.
I started it a year ago. I was afraid to jump into it because I thought, this is too small of a niche, and I have 3 kids, and I'm going to starve to death. But it's actually, there's a lot of work here and a ton of opportunity. So
there's tons of problems to be solved that can be created. Businesses can solve that. And that's, technology, business, and that's the way to think about it, because you balance them both, right? Your purpose with your profit. So I wanted to, we have very little time, sorry, we have a very short, so I just wanted to quickly ask our panel, how do you scale this, right? So the scaling is a very big impact. Part of the wheels work that we are doing, I just want to say quickly, besides what I'm doing otherwise, is that in wheels we are only taking models that are successful, already proven models, and then we scale it. We scale it with the government and NGOs and really working with philanthropy and foundations and all that. So that's our scaling model, but we're not reinventing the wheel. So Pratham, or your impact, how do you want to scale it? How do you see it?
It's the biggest question that NGOs face. And we have probably 1 million NGOs in India, right? I mean, who are small and have not been able to scale, and they all do great work. So, what I have found is, obviously, this whole idea of working with the government. So if you have a great idea about how do you alleviate ultra poverty, right? I mean, so if you can do some pilots and then figure out how do you work with the government to scale it up. Not to dwell on this too much, but on this Nudge Foundation thing, a $1 investment that I make or any of you make translates into about, let me do it this way. $20 million investment in Nudge releases $1 billion of.
That's it. You just said it. That multiplication factor.
It's a multiplication factor because you go to the state governments that, hey, listen, I got this pilot. What I'm doing really works.
Right.
So please help us scale this up. I mean, a state like Jharkhand.
I'm going to have very quick one second for
Okay.
everybody. But
Right.
the multiplicative factor is what you're looking at, right?
Is very, very important.
So how are you looking at scaling leadership?
Yeah, so yeah, of course. Scaling universities is a very different way to think about it, but I'll tell you some statistics about
I wasn't thinking of scaling
I know. How do you scale impact? So
scaling leadership.
Yeah. So one way that Rishihood thinks about doing this is, I mean, we have to establish some centers of excellence. So if we can establish the Rishihood curriculum, the way it works, how is it able to produce these leaders or the social leaders that we imagine them to be 4 years from now? I think that is the big innovation that is missing. Then that becomes the standardized curriculum that can be replicated across institutions in the country. The way we select our faculty, train our faculty, the way we design our curriculum, those becomes models for other institutions to look up to, and we will offer services for other institutions. That is how we imagine the impact of Rishihood to scale across institutions, and Rishihood becomes a model of education across the country.
Awesome.
That is
I
what
think the idea is to show the models that are scalable.
Correct.
Right? So your Arogya, how do you scale it?
So we look at first establishing the impact that we make with each of our programs. So we have programs for school children, for workplaces, for text messages, and so on. So 2 of our programs, we have shown impact, behavior change impact, through science studies. So those 2 programs we are looking at scaling. With government, we're in conversations with Karnataka government and a couple others. We're doing statewide deployment in 6 districts of West Bengal and in 1 entire district of Uttar Pradesh. We are talking to NGOs. So for example, we're really thinking of how to scale the schools program, 11-year-olds in the school setting using Rotary clubs. To partner with. So we are scaling big time. We're deeply thinking about scale. For us, scale means 2 things. It means expansion as well as reducing cost per beneficiary. If you don't reduce cost, you're not scaling. You're just expanding.
And your impact is a behavioral change.
Yes, for us.
So you're talking about taking it from the childhood to the...
Yes.
So thank you for doing that. That's the scale, ultimately, right? The childhood to the big. Then everything changes once you're used to a certain way of behavior.
Right. Start getting the habit set at every level.
Absolutely. Thank you. Jared.
So I'm thinking about this a little bit as like increasing the social impact. And what I find is in real estate, I work with a lot of people that are very talented at making money. They know the sort of the first dimension is like investing to make money. And then I have to sit down with them and I have to say, here's a second dimension of investing to make money with social impact. And then they say to me, okay, what are the risks? And then I have to work through that with them to help them understand that this is not any more risky than the way that you always invested. And that's the way to scale.
Yeah.
You mean impact investing through scale. Scaling through impact investing of your funds, your energy, and time. So I want to engage this very...
It's a risk management
please.
Quickly. In terms of, and we spend a lot of time looking at many NGOs and what differentiates a scalable one versus another. I would say there's 2 things. One is an extremely clear vision from the leadership about what they want to accomplish and not dilute it. Because it is very difficult in an NGO because we can have a donor come in and say, hey, listen, we'll give you money if you do this, but that may not be in our wheelhouse. And that will take us away from what we are trying to accomplish. So in my opinion, at least, it's very important to have a very, very clear vision, a very clear mission of what we're trying to accomplish.
But not just the NGO, but also if it's your business or whatever.
Absolutely.
It's just the clarity of the impact and the multiplication. So Dr. Raj is here to say something, please.
Now, I want to ask each of you, scaling absolutely essential for any NGO group. But what are the plans to sustain them? And maybe each one of you can take 10 seconds to see. The initial donations are not difficult to get, but once you get started, to maintain and sustain, you need funds. How are you covering that? Is it all from donation? Is it something that you do?
So I just want to say that anything that's sustainable in a long run is what you're saying The seed money is what people can give for impact investing, but it has got to be a self-sustainable and profit-making ultimately, or at least sustaining itself, organization. So I think
I've taken enough time here.
Pratham is pretty self-sustainable, even though it's still collecting funds or impact us.
Yes. every day, and we have significant donors here in this crowd, and we appreciate all the help that you've given us.
But we still have to make that model
every day.
more.
Fundraising is critical. There is no getting around it, and
Yeah, I can.
No, fundraising is not easy.
It's very
so
tough.
we need to create models which can multiply.
2 or 3
by
ways
themselves.
that we do it. One is to have a very strong board. You have to have a very, very strong board for your organization, which is a mix of high-level donors and people with a lot of network. Very important. Second thing.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and the second thing is that initially, when we have NGOs, we are very cost conscious. Pratham, we try to maintain 10% or lower cost numbers, for Pratham. But you have to hire staff. You have to hire business development people, you got to run this thing like a business. Business development people, and if you have to, swallow some cost on a 1 or 2 year basis as you're building this out, it pays tremendous dividend on a long-term basis. And I think many NGOs starve themselves too much because they're watching costs very, very closely.
So we have to learn a lot from a lot of models, but models finally, each entity needs to become sustainable.
100% right.
You were trying to say something.
What I working in nonprofits for 20 years, the most successful nonprofits that I have ever seen have for-profit entities that they own and platforms and actually services that they deliver to create a baseline for their business. Any of the nonprofits I see that try to live on grants, they're like this, and their staffs are up and down. But the ones that create a baseline, like service offering, and compete in the market with a specific business, and then use that profit to continue to fund their philanthropy.
No, that's exactly the model that we'll
I wanted to just answer Dr. Shah's question. At Arogya World, we think of our sustainability in 2 ways. Yes, one is funding sustainability, and that one we are actually talking to government. And for the first time, we see a way to integrate with the Karnataka government. They have an Arogya Griha Yojana program in which our text message program can be integrated. So we are really hopeful that that is going to work. So scale is working. Sustainability is ensured that way. The second one for us is sustaining the behavior change, right? You teach a child at age 11, you teach a young professional at age 25, how do you sustain it over their lifetime? Because the behavior change is not a one-time thing. You have to keep it up for your life. And for that, we're trying to I'm an Ashoka fellow, and through Ashoka, we went through a strategy exercise, and we found out that maybe every single person can, or especially mothers, can become change makers. So we are trying to build a change-making network and nurture it so that we can sustain behavior change over the long
Awesome, parallel efforts, that's great, with government and mothers.
One more point on this. I'm sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, so university financing models are there across the world. But I think the challenge in India is universities have not been able to build an endowment, including the IITs or many good institutions, because there is not yet a philanthropic mind towards building institutions. It's very nascent. It's just starting to happen. So primarily, the financing happens through student fees, but that's not the right way to do because it becomes unaffordable. So we're trying very interesting ways of doing things. Can we, given the whole startup ecosystem building in India, can universities become incubation centers? Can we look into the students who graduate?
Social entrepreneurship.
Yes, so the various ways which we have to think beyond student fees and philanthropic capital to be able to make it affordable yet high quality. So a lot of innovation is needed in building high quality.
I want to have 1 second for Ratan Agrawal because he's the Wheels president. Please,
Yes.
Ratan, stand up and say something quickly.
We'll talk.
Any social impact entity, we are all creating the value for a particular beneficiary, right? The value may show up 5 years later or 10 years later or 15 years later. At the end of the day, you're doing something to create economic value on the target beneficiary. how can you create the linkage between when you are investing in that beneficiary and to the time that beneficiary is accruing the benefits? Because that has to be solved to create long-term sustainability. The donations are always going to be scarce. Yeah, so creating the linkages between the time the benefit is created, economic value is created, versus the time when you are investing in that.
So I can give this a shot because we are thinking deeply about this exact question. You know, we have an 11-year-old to whom we teach lifestyle change habits. We don't have the ability to track that child for 20 years more and make sure they get, prevent diabetes. Now, sorry? And continue past that.
No, contribute back. So his point is beneficiaries need to contribute back from whatever they're getting benefit for, whether it's the Rishi University's leaders or it's the energy efficiency or it's Pratham's children, right?
But the one point we are trying to do is the mathematical modeling to see if our academic partners, Stanford, Emory, or Indian Council of Medical Research, can actually do a modeling exercise, use the studies of other people to establish outcomes. See, outcomes are known. We know B to C, behavior change leads to diabetes prevention. We do A to B. We get the child or the adult, a young adult to become, to adopt healthy habits. So instead of showing A to C, can we do it mathematically? That's how we are looking at it.
Thanks, Nalini. Last word to Deepak ji.
Yeah, so it is a very tough thing to do. You know, I mean, if you have vocational training, you can see it. You know, our highest ROI in the Pratham system, we have a vocational training program. We do 30, 40 young men and women a year. And it's very easy to see. You put in $100, 100 rupees, whatever it is, you'll get 200 rupees back in terms of salaries for these young men and women. Education is a very long-term, matter. It is, you can spend money now, but you may not see the benefit as exactly what you are saying. So what we really focus on is you got 50, 60 people in a measurement unit at Pratham who are basically working, this is going to take too long.
No.
Who basically work with the state governments and show them, so when the education secretary of UP, wakes up every morning, he's got a dashboard from Pratham, right, which says how many kids showed up that day, the day before, how many teachers showed up, because one of the biggest issues in India is that 30% of teachers don't show up, right? How many teachers showed up? What were the test results like? And so there are all these kind of measurement devices now which are making a dramatic difference. So Pratham, in fact, UP has given the entire 4th and 5th grade education responsibility in terms of measurement to Pratham. So, so I think it is, there are ways to do it, but you're 100% right. I mean, it is a 20-year, journey and so on. So.
Yeah, please, Bindu.
Amazing job you're doing, cardiologist, and what you talked about diabetes, which is 101 million people.
Yes.
My question to you, with Wheels, what we can do is outcome data and Birmingham-based clinical research we can do. Because not just prevention is important, but what people who already have a disease, how are we doing socio-economic impact of cardiovascular risk reduction, complication reduction, and correct impact to the government, like
absolutely.
Which we can do it. I think this is very important.
Yeah.
What Pratham is saying, we can do with the technology measurement weekly, like what we get a measurement for the sugar for people who are pre-existing diabetes.
Yeah.
So Bindu
I
must connect.
Yeah,
you guys should connect and talk about it because
I agree.
Your coordination. So one of the big things about any of these forums is because there's so many of us who have such brilliant ideas and so much experience that I see so many faces here who have done tremendously beautiful work. That connection is where we need to be connected. I just want to say that Wheels has taken it on themselves to connect this ecosystem of IIT and other than IIT, like me, to connect with everybody and Dr. Shah, and to make a platform. And we have a little QR code, which anybody can just scan to participate and be champion and learn about it. So really invite you all and the whole IIT community to do that interconnection to make the larger impact. Please.
Yeah.
Big prevalence in India and USA.
Right.
And there's a lot of need in over the next 10 years, I think there's going to be more number of psychologists
Yeah.
who can help the psychiatrist ratio is very low in India.
Yeah, yeah.
The mental health, because everybody
potential.
can't hear. So mental health is a one of the big parameters. Anybody from the audience, I just want to make sure that we get it, please. Why don't you stand up, and otherwise everybody can't hear you. Yeah. You look.
That's all right, I'll shout.
No, but it's not easy for everybody.
It's a small room. I had a question for Shobhit. I was just curious to find out what you teach at Rishihood that is different from what a regular university teaches to get the outcomes that you want.
Okay, that's a very good question, because when we say impact and how do we create those impact leaders, right? So quick answer is that the initial 1 year of Rishihood is primarily a Rishihood foundation. A lot of focus in that foundation year is to identify what are the big challenges either the country is facing or globally, what are the challenges, identifying your own potential, and then finding ways to address those problems. So a lot of education of the humanities happens in the first year, where you're given a context to your education. And that's a big challenge today, because there is no reason why I should get educated, and a lot of people feel disconnect from their disciplines. So the first 1 year is spent on more of identifying the why of your education, and the next 2 years are primarily into your discipline, where you understand the context of your education and apply that into your specific disciplines. So why should I be studying computer science or psychology or entrepreneurship? What is the big problem that I want to solve, right? And the last 2 years are primarily into choosing a minor. So the multidisciplinary education, where you can combine your majors with your minors. So the best practices that is happening globally, along with giving them a context of the education, that is how we are trying to define it. Along with the way it's delivered in the classroom, it's not a typical classroom that we think about, right? It's all based on, the pedagogical model is about problem solving. The campus culture is around problem solving. That's how our faculty are oriented. So a lot of this larger context of the education and our careers is given through the education that we have. And initial results are very good in that sense, that we see a lot of motivation in young people to be able to think that their education should be for a purpose.
Which never was the case when we were growing up.
And that's when we come here, we think about now what do we do, right? So can we address that at a much younger age? And that aspiration is there in young people. It's no more seen as though somebody's giving us some gyan. It is like they always wanted to solve something big, but nobody gave them the right platform to think about it.
Yeah. Awesome. I need quick questions from each person or comment. We have very little time left.
I want to go there. Oh, yeah, please. You're welcome.
I know, it sounds wonderful.
I have a very quick comment. As Deepak ji talked about people in political arena, my son is doing political science from UC Santa Cruz, and he's the only Indian American there. So it's not only just encouraging kids to do psychology, political science, sociology, because we have done enough of engineering. Thank you.
Can I just add to that for one thing I would just add to it, that one of the joys for me personally of impact has been just the quality of our young men and women who are doing public service. And these kids have gone to Harvard, Stanford, what have you, any college. Rutgers is a favorite school of mine. But they're willing to not do, private equity or hedge funds and things like that, and actually run for political office. And it's just fantastic change in culture that I've seen just in the last 5 years.
I think the next generation is our hope. I think we have messed up the world.
Really.
I told my kids when we were growing up, don't ever listen to adults. They have messed up the world,
So it gives me
including me.
a lot of optimism about the long term.
Fabulous discussion. I'm Rajiv Jain, and I just want to share something. A couple of years ago, I was absolutely fortunate and blessed to serve as the interim CEO of Akshayapatra, and I met you at Sanjeev Ahuja's house.
Yes.
And this is a very fabulous conversation. When we talk about the scale, it doesn't happen overnight. And I would have to agree with Deepak on that. Organization, NGO has to have a very laser-focused objective. Like Akshayapatra feeding midday meal to the school-going children. Currently, we are serving about 2.2 million children every single day, school day, and our goal is by 2025, we want to serve 3 million. Okay?
Awesome job.
And you need to scale that up, and you need to have really, really good board. And how do you measure? So long-term measurement is extremely difficult, like over the life of that child, but we have a lot of anecdotes. But there are certain things like Pratham does as well, like you can measure certain things. So like at the start of the school year, at the end of the school year, you take the weight measurements and see how the kids are doing. Kind of going back to Nalini's point. So those are the kind of measurement, but otherwise longer term measurement. And one thing we have learned in our efforts in the US, not Akshapatra, but my wife and I, our foundation efforts in the US is that some of these things take minimum 2 to 3 generations to bring in the change.
Wow, so 2-3 generation of investment.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the examples like KIP in Odisha has done a remarkable job of connecting the end value to the cost structure and sustaining the organization. Yep. And it takes sustained programmatic efforts to stay engaged with those beneficiaries, whether 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, so you're able to cycle back monetary value to sustain your organization.
Thanks.
Smita, I just want
you had
I know
something
it's
to say, Ravi.
May I make one comment?
Ravi, go ahead, and then you.
Smita,
yeah.
may I make one comment?
Please go ahead.
I think it's of interest to everybody here to know that diabetes, India is a diabetes capital of the world, and Indians get diabetes 10, 20 years younger than Americans. So they get diabetes at age 30. So think about it. The theme of the conference is India Rising, and India's, future as an economic powerhouse is golden, except for the fact that all the 20-year-olds and 25-year-olds who are fueling India's growth are going to get diabetes by the time they're 30. So we've got to tackle it.
No, the problem is significant, and there are many problems that are significant.
Sure.
So that's not even,
Thank you, Smita.
Tackling it is the important
part.
part.
Thank you, Smita, for organizing a wonderful panel here. I know Deepak and all of you, and I've been serving on the board of Pratham for 10 years and various other non-profits.
Ravi, question.
My question is, we are a group of successful entrepreneurs, about 100 people in DC area. They're all Indian American entrepreneurs. So they are trying to give back to non-profits. I know you're talking about scalability, sustainability and scalability, right? How can they support you by not just donating money, not about the donation, right? But I would like to hear from you how they can give their time. So they have committed to give 6 hours a month, about 100 business people. So I would like to hear from you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, happy.
Would love to engage with you. Thank you for all the great work you're doing. Thank you.
We can link each one of them. Yes. And they can get involved. Involvement is more important than your money. Time is more important than people's money. And intention and your brain and your participation. So please participate with Wheels Global Foundation. That's Pan IIT's arm of giving back. And in any form or fashion, your time, your effort, your money is highly appreciated. Yes, please. I have. Aparna gives a lot to the world. So she's a lawyer, and here she is.
I just feel that a part of this conference, if we really need to make a revolution and do a change, is that IIT should organize trips to India where people need to go and see what they are doing and what they are giving. Money is a part of it. It's very hard to know. You give money and where that money is gone. Who knows? So I think there should be more encouragement in planning these. If we can plan this conference, we can always plan a trip to India and have people visit these places. And then give time.
That is a business idea. That is a business idea that somebody has to take and make it happen
No, but I
for the
think
next generation.
If I can just add to that, I think one of the things that we really need to focus on that how do we involve our youngsters?
No one wants to stop.
Yes,
And
exactly.
we have so one of the conscious effort we have at Pratham, by the way, is that we want to have at least 1/3 of the board be 40 or below in age, right? Otherwise, us oldsters, we are there right now, but what happens next? So I think it is really to have really some numerical objectives on that is and I think it's a great idea.
And not just the board. I think the kids It's like Teach for India, like Teach for America. But it has to be a proper, somebody has to make it successful. But thanks, everybody. Awesome discussion. I know we can all continue this. Look forward to getting engaged.
Good to meet.